the day, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, of course, which is plaguing everybody's life if you work for a company over 50 employees probably, but even if not, you're probably still dealing with this rotten psychology. And I had some stuff I wanted to bring up, but Xavier dropped this clip in the ZNN Telegram. Oh, and by the way, if you are interested in supporting zetetic.news so we can do things like upgrade our hardware when necessary to, make a smoother stream, or pay for extra bandwidth or whatever, you can go over to zetetic.news and find our donation T-Fuel address. We're not interested in dollars, really, honestly. Send us T-Fuel. If you don't know how, send us a message. We'll help you figure it out. But anyways, is there a particular... This is an hour and 11.
It's about 24 minutes in.
Okay.
There's a very revealing segment.
Okay, do you want to preface this clip as part of the DEI subject matter we're going to discuss here?
No, I just want the full audience.
Okay, all right. All right, here we go.
It's for about 2 or 3 minutes here.
That's not true as the child develops, because it has to switch to more of an encouraging role. It's like out of your dependency into the world, and the paternal spirit encourages that development. Now, mothers can do that too, but roughly speaking, women tend to do the nurturing thing more and men do the encouraging thing more. So now the question is, how do you mediate? How do you manage to fulfill both those roles in the absence of a heterosexual arrangement?
Right. So now naturally we understand that there are men who are more nurturing and women who aren't as nurturing and all of those things. Now you know David pretty well, and we've been out to dinner with Tammy many times, and you know him. He is incredibly warm and nurturing and loving and deeply cares about all of those things. And I'm telling you, he is reading about skin to skin contact every day and all of the breast milk stuff and everything. And I know he will have a huge percentage of the stuff that a mother would bring, but I also know it's not all of it.
Well,
and
also,
he knows it's
the
not
other
all
thing
of it.
too is that you guys have to do that consciously.
Yes.
Right. With with research in hand, and to build up that proclivity that would be there more automatically, arguably, with a mother, and all the psychological and hormonal transformations she undergoes, and that transition into breast milk production and all of that, which is a fundamental transformation in a woman's biology and her psyche. Now, you and David have ample resources at hand, financially and intellectually, that enable you to traverse this pathway as well as anyone is likely to do it. But it is very interesting and salutary to hear you also talk about the complications. So on the feminine side, let's say, you think you have the nurturance angle well covered. You talked to me a little bit about having women around in your infant and child's life as well.
So David's mom is going to be living with us for a few months at the start, as well as his sister, who's taken care of young babies already. But now I understand that they're not the biological mother, but they will be there. We're going to have night nurses also for a few months to help the babies get on a normal sleep schedule. But these are all the pieces that we're trying to put together. But can we just back up for 1 second? Because I think before we go too deep into just the parental part of this, there was another thing that came up when we sort of roughly sketched out this conversation over dinner that I think is important, which is that if you weren't to allow gay people to either get married and enter relationships that will last the test of time, or have children to really last the generations, then what are we reducing these people to? And I think that's a huge part of this for me, that I think had the world not shifted to be a little bit kinder, had I not maybe been on tour with you and come to some of these realizations, or found someone in the world that I wanted to put their needs above my own, that I could have been left to a life that would have been sort of purely narcissistic or self-destructive or anything. I used to live
I don't see how that, in some sense, I don't see how that can be... There can be any alternative to that if there isn't another pathway forward. Right? So,
So Xavier, you brought the clip up. I have my own thoughts, but I mean, what did you? Wow.
Okay, let's just go in reverse. Like what he just said there, I think is incredibly revealing. So in other words, if there wasn't a welcoming political climate for this particular appetite of wanting to contract and buy a human child from a surrogate and have a household that raises this child independent of the mother that was just contracted to pop it out, I would have been a total narcissist. And then JP goes, "Oh yeah, that's kind of unavoidable."
The only other path, basically. If you don't have a child to raise, then that's the only path there is. Which I haven't heard the rest of this, but if I were Dave, would probably be like, oh, like a little offended, right?
Well, but he's the one who said it.
He is, but I guess he feels good about it because he got the financial resources to have night nurses, and his mother lived with him for a brief period of time, and the breast milk, and to actually procure the child. But what's interesting, what jumped out to me is Jordan's obviously trying to be very kosher, and kosher is the word, right? Yeah. And he says, you've got the financial resources to raise the kid as well as anyone else. And it's like, I'm sorry, but not every gay couple can even buy a kid, nor can they afford night nurses, nor can they afford natural human breast milk, which is extremely expensive if you can even find it. So,
well, and he's basically putting up a false equivalency and saying that, well, as long as you're super rich gay couple, you're every bit as good as a natural hetero couple.
Yeah, and it's a faulty premise because, and I know they're trying to Dave's trying to concede something, right? I know it's not all there, but we're doing all these other things, and it's like, yeah, but the key thing is like really the innate is what's innate. Because there are, and Jordan did allude to this a little bit, the biophysiology behind breastfeeding. And it's like, you can't replace that. Even if you go buy breast milk from a human being, you can't replace the social interaction, the bonding with the mother that happens. And it doesn't, you might be able to pretend, you might be able to buy a really good silicone breast now that you can put that, you might be able even to soak it in warm water, to the exact temperature, and put it in a fake breast that you use, the femme man in the relationship does to pretend, right? Mm-hmm. But even then, the so-called scientists are now just discovering, right, that there's actually a communication that happens from the saliva that goes on the mother's nipple to the breast itself, which lets down specific ratios of ingredients, let's call it, to optimize that baby's health. And obviously, who knows what other kinds of information, because it's literally the mom's DNA.
And the other false premise is, it's a perfectly natural desire for a man in his position to want this. It's like, well, but you're engaging in basically a science experiment.
Right.
That's not really natural. It's completely divergent from the natural order.
And what really perplexed me about the whole Roe v. Wade thing is all these like LGBTQ plus identifying people and people paying lip service to the LGBTQ mafia rhetoric, saying that this is like a travesty for LGBTQ plus rights. And I'm just sitting there scratching my head. Okay, who's in that group? Lesbians, gays, bisexuals, which let's just put them aside. I mean, come on. Transsexuals, the majority of that acronym, okay, these are people who are engaging in non-heterosexual sex, which will never result in a baby. So why would reducing the number of abortions be against their wishes? They're not even capable of getting pregnant if they're engaging in those activities.
Wouldn't it allow for more supply for them to flex their dollars towards?
And for those who want to have the, break the nuclear family, like the Black Lives Matter manifesto basically says, and want to have these non-traditional families where we have 3 moms or septuples, whatever, you have a lower price human resource that you can, you know what I mean? So I don't see why that is a negative for the LGBTQ anything.
Well, I think it's a solidarity thing. Their sense of social justice has been wrapped up in the idea of ritualistic infanticide for convenience most of the time, and you know.
But I think you had a broader critique of Jordan Peterson within the context of this clip.
Oh, yes,
Obviously, it has a lot to do with the DEI stuff.
It does.
What was that?
But also, the next clip we're going to play is based on that faulty premise that I just cited, which is that, oh, well, if it exists, it's natural. You know, we just have to adapt, and we just have to accept this new thing. And this is coming from the guy who supposedly is up in arms against, you know, trans stuff and has, you know, a critique of compelled speech, but he himself doesn't admit the fact that a lot of this trans agenda comes from people who are suppressing his speech. If you take it all the way back, you know, someone to like Magnus Hirschfeld, like I know that the whole "what is a woman," you know, sort of exposes it with John Money and Alfred Kinsey and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's like 3 generations later after Hirschfeld. You know, and it's like, well, let's not examine Hirschfeld because then that would completely unravel. Look who is influenced by Hirschfeld and his institute. Oh, that's right. The entire neo-Marxist critical school, critical theory school of thought, and that is the basis for what is dubbed cultural Marxism in the West through the academy and everything. So you see the perverse core of this critical theory stuff. It goes back to, and it intermingles with this abominationist philosophy, which is, oh, well, if it exists, then it's natural.
Right.
We just have to adapt to it.
So let's play the clip. This is
And here you go.
World
Here's
Economic
World
Forum.
Economic Forum. This shows you that Peterson is an internationalist puppet.
If something exists, it's by definition natural. If 2 women love each other, it means that this is natural, that no law of nature prohibits it. And the fact is that homosexuality is quite common among many animals,
I've heard
not
this so
just
many times.
among humans. For example, among our closest relatives in nature, the chimpanzees, homosexual behavior is quite common. Most sexual activities among chimpanzees are not done in order to procreate little chimps. Rather, chimpanzees use sex to cement political alliances, to establish intimacy, and to diffuse tensions. Is there anything unnatural about it?
Wow.
The idea that sex exists only for the purpose of procreation is complete nonsense, invented by priests and rabbis. In truth, our concepts natural and unnatural are not taken from biology, they are taken from Christian theology. The theological meaning of natural is in accordance with the intentions of the God who created nature. Christian theologians argued that God created the human body, intending each limb and organ to serve a particular purpose. If we use our limbs and organs for that purpose, envisioned by God, this is natural activity. To use them differently than God intends is unnatural. But all this is mythology. God didn't create humans and other animals. They evolved by natural selection. And evolution just has no purpose. Organs have not evolved with a particular purpose. And the way organs are used by animals and humans is in constant flux.
Wow. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. JP constantly defers to this Darwinian evolutionary biologist line of like, oh, well, you know, but it shows how schizophrenic this line of thinking is within evolutionary biology, because you're trying to say that men come from monkeys. That's a mythology.
Well, not only that, I mean, there's the whole missing link thing, right?
Yeah,
which you could point to. Okay, chimpanzees do this, but we departed from them.
Supposedly,
right?
Even according to Darwin.
That's what I'm saying, is according to your own logic, we departed from them. So why are you referencing
Yeah.
referencing the fact that we've observed chimpanzees using sex as for political alliances, and of course that's a huge admission.
It's anthropomorphization right there too. I mean, you know, are the chimpanzees thinking about this?
Well,
You're
if
thinking about
the
it.
logic is they're doing it, they're natural, therefore it's right. And it's like, yeah, well, they also tear each other's genitals off and face off,
Right.
but that's not necessarily a good thing to do.
Well,
Nor do I think sex should be used for political alliances, which again, he's the World Economic Forum advisor. Like,
yeah. Yeah. So this
clearly they do that,
right, and
like
this,
chimpanzees.
this shows you the problem with that Darwinian frame of mind is
Right.
that it's all about it's this abominationist reductionism that says, oh well, might equals right. If there's a ideological block that declares that this is natural, then it's natural.
Right. And on that note, I think this is a good segue. If you're just listening, head over to zetetic.news on any of our live streams, and you can see this clip. It's from a new Disney cartoon with some robot Baymax. And it's on this whole line of thinking. I mean, it kind of assaults my sense of logic, like how I'm supposed to jive this with what that guy's saying, because what this is saying is not natural in any sense of the word. In fact, it's as fictional as this character Baymax.
Yes.
What is being referenced here. So check this out.
Excuse me, which of these products would you recommend?
Oh, well, these are the tampons I usually use.
Thank you.
I prefer pads. They're more comfortable for me.
Thank you.
I always get the ones with wings.
Thank you.
Get unscented and bleach-free if you can.
Thank you.
Yo, my daughter loves these.
Thank you.
These might be easier if it's her first period.
These are really environmentally friendly.
So there's a guy in there, right? That's the point. They just subtly put a guy in there who says, I use this with wings.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, yeah, this is just a normal shopping experience, you know.
Well, not only are they talking about periods to like 5-year-olds,
Right.
which is the first thing. The second of all, they've got a guy in here.
who's just up and down the feminine products line,
Thank you.
right?
Yo, my daughter loves these.
Right.
more
It's
comfortable
like
for me.
natural
Thank
to
you.
I always
shop
get
for
the ones
your
with wings.
dog.
Thank
I get the
Get
ones with
unscented.
The
wings.
ones with wings.
Comfortable for me.
Thank you.
I always get the ones with wings.
Thank you.
Get unscented
And look at the trans flag shirt there.
Right.
Yeah, that's the subtle assumption there.
And then
is
how
that-
racist is the depiction of this black man standing behind Baymax?
bleach-free if you can.
Listen.
Thank you.
Yo, my daughter loves these.
Yo, my daughter loves these. That accent.
Yeah.
That's a racist depiction. No, I'm just kidding. Like
Right.
that's what we expect to hear out of a lot of African Americans. But that's what this whole this schizophrenic, racist, obsessed society. That's what they would say. You know, that's something they would complain about. But at the same time, it's like they want more diversity. This is a pretty diverse crowd.
But it's
right.
it's tokenistic.
But then-
you know, it's superficial.
But then they're taking it to the extreme. If you just look over at this post, this is the new Lord of the Rings show on Amazon Prime. Whoops, that's Biden. Hopefully you can just see it here.
Yeah. You know, I wonder, have you ever seen the movie or read the book for that matter, The Color Purple?
No, but there was a movie adaptation with Whoopi Goldberg, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So why don't we go back and, you know, cast that with a bunch of Asians and whites and, you know, Latinos? Oh, that's heresy. But if it's, you know, supposed to be medieval-esque fairies and, you know, kind of Celtic, Germanic, Teutonic narratives that Tolkien put together that definitively refer to European and Anglo culture, specifically Germanic, that's open field. That's open season. We got to put, you know, as much pigment in there as possible.